Hi folks, welcome to RJ Impact. Today we're going to be taking a look at another one of those lawsuits that Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried is facing in the wake of the bankruptcy of his cryptocurrency empire. That's right, he's facing court again. This time, however, it's a civil suit that's been brought against him by none other than FTX itself. That's right, the company that ostensibly he owns somewhere around 90% of. Even though it is in bankruptcy, that fact of ownership actually still holds true. In fact, the details provided in the suit actually give us a couple more insights into the inner mess, as I'm simply calling it, that was the joint running of both FTX and Alameda Research. And we see that it's not just SBF, but some of his inner circle who have been jointly named. I'll scroll the suit itself in the background to this video with a couple of comments on it, just to clarify one or two obvious points. In case you're wondering about the format and the layout of the document, it essentially describes how John Ray, wants various donations and fundings and gifts and transfers from the various recipients reversed and refunded, and the suit describes the circumstances of the transfers, the who and the what companies were involved, and the who and the what companies essentially benefited from fraudulent transfers. Let me just clarify one thing, having seen it many times in the past. I know it can be confusing and people can misunderstand the actuality of the situation around the point that how can the owner of a company be sued by the company that he or she owns? Now let me quickly explain that and then we'll get to the substance of the suit itself. Essentially, under common law, the creation of a company which issues stocks or shares on its own behalf creates what is usually referred to as a person. This is a separate entity that exists in its own right, and crucially this person is a distinct person from the owners of the shares. So if FTX thinks itself financially wronged and has a reasonable case, then it can sue under its own name. So how does a company think, I hear you say? Well, simply it's the managers, the directors, the board, or the governance structure that controls the company's assets who are obliged to act on its behalf. In this case, the managers are currently represented by John Ray, the insolvency and restructuring guru, although I rattled through that quite quickly and there's an awful lot more relating to various duties of care issues and obligations to creditors, etc., etc. I thought I'd just highlight that in the cause of being helpful. So Sam Bankman-Fried and his cronies are being sued. That's right, specifically Sam Bankman-Fried and various other execs have been accused in the suit of taking or misappropriating, as the suit has it, more than $1 billion in the months leading up to the demise of FTX last November. Now, there are a host of share awards, real estate purchases, cash transfers, and other nefarious transactions, and all of these should be reversed. So, who are the cronies? Well, it won't surprise anyone who's followed any of this that Caroline Ellison, supposed one-time love interest of SBF, and head of Alameda Research, feature significantly. In her case, $22.5 million was apparently paid by Ellison to herself. Very nice. Part of which went to her personal bank account and part of which was invested in her on her behalf in an AI research company. Gary Wang, one of the co-founders of FTX, and Nishad Singh are both named as beneficiaries of illegal transfers. I've talked about these particular three cronies in a couple of videos which you can find in the FTX playlist on my channel. Now those videos discuss their criminal activities where they've been accused of fraud and have been, and still are as far as we're aware, helping the authorities chasing more lenient treatment essentially. Wang and Singh at least have pled guilty to fraud-related charges. Just to clarify where we are, Bankman-Fried himself has pled not guilty on fraud charges, but also not guilty on money laundering, campaign finance violations, and bribery covered under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Now, what the suit is after, as I've mentioned a couple of times, John Ray, who previously oversaw the Enron liquidation as it happens, is looking to claw back assets on behalf of FTX, which it can then use to repay its own creditors. Essentially, primarily, those thousands of FTX customers on behalf of whom Ray is looking to minimize their losses on their investments as much as possible. A couple of extracts from the suit against the four and the others mentioned in the suit are that they misappropriated funds on a continuous basis to finance luxury condominiums, political and charitable donations, speculative investments, and other pet projects. They abused their control over FTX and its related companies to commit one of the largest financial frauds in history. Now, apparently they issued some $750 million in equity to themselves for, well, nothing. Nice windfall. SBF and Wang took $546 million between them, which we've seen before, and this was to purchase shares in Robinhood, a trading platform. Now, in doing a bit of research into this, I saw one report say that this document alludes to Sam Bankman-Fried transferring $10 million to his father's, $10 million that is, to his father's account, labelled as a gift. Such a nice son, obviously. Now, his father then transferred around about $7 million of that to his personal accounts at Morgan Stanley and TD Ameritrade. I cannot follow that trail using this document, so I put it out there that it's been referred to, but just say that I don't know the source of that document, but it's talked about in the same breath as this lawsuit, which is why I've mentioned it at least. The suit itself says the transfers, and nice family gifts obviously, were all made at a time when the defendants all knew that FTX was insolvent. And this is important itself because even if there were some rational reason that could be concocted for the transfers, if it jeopardised creditors, in other words the customers of FTX as a result, and it would do because there would be less money for those creditors in the overall pot, then that in itself is a prohibited action. The irony of ironies, according to that father's transfer which I just mentioned, is that apparently that money is being used to support Sam Bankman-Fried's defence at the moment. I think that those couple of points must have come from some press briefing or other that at the moment is eluding me. Anyway, let's get back to facts. In respect of Alameda, how did that keep getting access to FTX's customer funds when it had considerable issues? Well, here we have it. In or around July 2019, Bankman-Fried directed one or more of his co-conspirators or individuals working at their behest to modify the software to permit Alameda to maintain a negative balance in its account on the exchange. So the company kept going despite running a very large deficit. And you might be wondering about the time elapsed since Ray has been running this liquidation and the bringing of this lawsuit. It shouldn't really be any surprise. Immediately after being appointed, he slammed the record keeping of FTX, saying he'd never before seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information. So that's it. I've run through that at a fairly high level just to give the essence of what's going on with this lawsuit. I'll put a couple of factoids just extracted from the lawsuit itself on the last couple of pages as I'm wrapping up. Clearly it's well within my remit to run through the whole thing in a lot of detail, which I'm not sure would add too much at this stage, but I'm more than happy to do so if there seems to be some extreme demand. Okay, so that's it in respect of the suit, but given my coverage of this whole affair and in case there is anybody who's suffered losses as a result of the collapse who might view this video, I think it is incumbent on me at least to advise on the fact that there is a portal recently opened for customers to make a claim in the company's restructuring. The link is here for those customers who had accounts with FTX, FTX US, Blockfolio, FTX EU, FTX Japan and Liquid. $1 billion lawsuit seems like a day in the life of Sam Bankman-Fried for now, doesn't it? For me anyway, I think it'd be a life in a day. Bye for now.